Hello and welcome to the first International Advanced Macro-algae Summit. It's an honor having you all here. We have guests from all across the globe. Hello, Canada. Welcome, Netherlands. Nice to see you, India. Hi, Morocco. Good evening, Indonesia. We even have guests from Iran, Iceland, Argentina, and many more. We are so excited hosting this international summit. In this summit, we will show and talk about the most innovative trends in the seaweed world in many verticals, such as food or culinary, nutraceuticals, medical, and cosmetics, that we believe can and will lead to a new international industrial revolution. But first, a special thank you for Seakura's founder, Mr. Yossi Karta, the owner and live spirit of our company. As you all know, seaweed can give solutions to a very wide spectrum in all aspects of our lives: ecological, environmental, health, economy, you name it. We are talking about a new revolution that will change our ecosystem towards a more sustainable and cleaner environment, and will support circular economies around the globe. In the nutraceutical worlds, we are talking about an up-and-coming change with regards to the iodine deficiency pandemic, which was acknowledged by the World Health Organization. In cosmetics, new and improved research on sunscreen protection from algae, and many more. The culinary world is seeing the vegan trend moving from niche to mainstream movements and sweeping large multinational manufacturers that are looking for more whole foods, alternative proteins, and sustainable ingredients. Another trend is back to foods that are more basic and less processed, but still premium quality. All of this and more, but I would like to take a minute to talk about the disaster that is happening right now in Israel. Few weeks back, an unknown oil tanker discharged tons of tar near our oceans, which created the worst ecological disaster we ever knew. Over 160 kilometers of shorelines were polluted. Now, this is not unique to Israel. This can happen and is happening in your countries as well. We as a society need to wake up because it's already too late. We will not be having anything to leave our children with. Our oceans are dying and all life in it as well. So without any further ado, and not even one word about COVID, let's quickly start. Hi, my name is Lior Riegler, and I'm Seakura's Director of Sales and Business Development. As you know, Seakura is one of the leading forefathers of the macroalgae world and one of the first privately owned companies to scale up land-based productions of seaweed. Putting the ocean top of our agenda was always the main goal for us, and we are proud of it. Now to our first speaker. He's without a doubt one of the leading KOLs in the seaweed world. Professor at the University of Connecticut, from Stamford, Connecticut. Please welcome Charles Yarish. The floor is yours, Professor.
Thank you, Lior. My video.
Professor, yeah, press your video button. Yeah.
It's not working. You have control. I don't. The host has stopped my video, it says.
One second, guys, technical difficulties. As you know, these things happen. Professor, we can see your presentation. Go ahead.
My video is disabled, so However, you can see my presentation. Well, welcome everybody to the Seakura.
1 second, Professor. One second, Professor. We will try to restart your account. 1 second. Professor, are you with us?
I am here, but I cannot start any video, Lior.
Okay. Okay, so we'll skip the video. If you can share your screen and perhaps start. Please, Professor,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, my name is Dr. Charles Yarish. I'm a professor at the University of Connecticut. And I'd like to give everybody an introduction to seaweed aquaculture that's taken place in North America and some of the challenges and future directions. Now, when we take a look at seaweed aquaculture globally, we see that the main species are kelp. There are some red algae, including Eucuma, gracilaria, and pyropia or neopyropia. And if we look at the economic value, there is obviously economic value today estimated over $13 billion, according to the FAO 2020 statistics. And if we look at the countries that are dominating the seaweed aquaculture regions of the world, you can see that from this particular table. Something that is quite evident, US, which has got a very large exclusive economic zone and a coastal zone, we're not even listed up there for cultivating of seaweeds. Over a decade ago, I started introducing seaweed aquaculture techniques in the US. And when we take a look at where we are today, we can see that the US market is roughly taking in about 16 million dry pounds of seaweed imports. The domestic market is roughly 55 to 60,000 dry pounds. Sorry that we're using the English system, but this report from the Ireland Institute was published last year, last spring, and it's one that really gives a good overall view of the US and the North American market there. And one of the things that's quite apparent when we take a look at the seaweeds there are many economic uses, and they have been used. And when we look at these economic uses, whether it's food, feeds, fertilizers, most recently a new economic use is one, the interest in countries in Western Europe and also in the United States for biofuels. But in order to be able to produce biomass cheap enough for biofuels, you'll have to have expanded seaweed cultivation. Now, when we take a look at expanded seaweed cultivation, there are values for seaweed production depending on the targeted industry, whether it's food, cosmetics, nutraceuticals, or pharmaceuticals, which are very valuable, but they use also lesser quantities of material. And the interest in Western countries today is looking at principally food ingredients, but we'll also hear new activities in cosmetics and nutraceuticals at the conference today. But when we look at the why it's taking place in Western countries and in the United States, we see there's an interest in natural ingredients, quality, safety, traceability is also very important. And also very important in the United States is the environmental footprint. We have a lot of competitive industries in nearshore environment and also in the exclusive economic environments. But with the interest in seaweeds there, wild harvest cannot meet market demand. So it's all about cultivation. When we look at the current food trends in the United States there, one of the first food trends that are very interested to the consumer is environmental sustainability. Obviously, when we look at the market, we see people are interested in taking more vegetables, reducing animal fats, reducing salt, sugars. And when we look at the opportunities, consumers are really looking at nutritionally rich foods, foods that taste good. And also there is increasing demand for organic designation. So there are demands for seaweeds, but in the United States in particular, we have a lot of obstacles. And these obstacles deal with coastal zone conflict. A lot of people want to use nearshore environments, even offshore environments. Also, people don't know enough about seaweed cultivation. So you have to develop a social license to get the public supporting the opportunities for seaweed cultivation in nearshore environments. Permitting in the United States, licensing, lease application is a fragmented process. We have 32 coastal states. Every coastal state has their own leasing rules and regulations, permitting as well. We also have to, when we are looking at cultivation systems, we have to comply with existing environmental regulations. And after we get to the point of getting permitted, we have to make sure that the aquaculture is going to be cost competitive. And that leaves the opportunities for culture and breeding technologies. Expanding processing is going to be very, very important to expand the market in traditional food markets as well as other markets. And another area that is very, very important has to do with food safety. And when we're looking at food safety, we have to work with regulatory agencies to ensure that they understand what seaweed cultivation is all about. So workforce development is something that will come because you'll need a workforce to be able to do the aquaculture systems. And so looking at overcoming people's reluctance to support seaweed cultivation. My backyard is Long Island Sound. This is a very large body of water starting in the far west of Long Island Sound in the areas of New York City and going to the eastern end of Long Island Sound, which opens up to the Atlantic Ocean. And these letters here are a report card on the water quality in Long Island Sound. And the water quality in Long Island Sound it diminishes as you're going west towards New York, in part because of the very high levels of nitrogen in the coastal waters, and some of the problems exhibiting high levels of nitrogen lead to eutrophication. So I wanted to really introduce ecosystem services to the United States. And there in our backyard, we developed cultivation systems and we were able to get permits in New York City, in Western Long Island Sound, that's the central node there, and in Central Long Island Sound. We had several test farms there that my laboratories there worked with individuals to cultivate seaweeds. We had seaweeds that were cultivated spring, summer, and fall, and then we had seaweeds that were being cultivated that we planned cultivation during the winter months because nutrients were in the water 12 months of the year. So the first seaweed that we focused on in open water culture happens to be Gracilaria. It's a red algae. It's got inherent value. We've done work on cultivation and land-based systems. We also moved it to the offshore environment at our sites in the East River as well as Long Island Sound. Along the way, we're interested in seeing what the value of this seaweed would be. So we also looked at the agar content, since the agar industry has demands right now for more agar to support industry. So we developed cultivation systems that went from the test tube, a laboratory, to big 4,000 liter tanks to provide seed stock for offshore. All this is available, open source. If you go to the reference there, this is open source for looking at targeted aquaculture species for the United States. And when we look at Gracilaria at our different sites there, Bronx is in New York there, we had growth rates there above 16% per day. But growth rates depend on temperature. Nutrients are not limiting at the sites that we work with, because we have high levels of nutrients as you're going west into Long Island Sound. So we were able to grow the grassal area, and I think this picture shows very nicely. You put out small little bundles of grassal area on long line systems, and in about 2 to 3 weeks, you get bundles that are the size of soccer balls. You'll also notice there that we didn't have any contaminants on our grassal area. We were able to determine what would be the appropriate depth of cultivation and spacing of our material, and we were very successful, and it's outlined in a paper that we published. Looking at productivity there at our sites there, in the New York sites there, we were able to get 365 kilos per month for a 100-meter long line. Long Island Sound, less production, but that's still significant amount of production. And when you're looking at this production, do understand that for all the tissue that you take out in cultivation, you're also removing nutrients, and this goes to ecosystem services. Now, in the winter months there, since nutrients are the highest during the winter, we focused our interest on a kelp species. It's called sugar kelp. This is found in the North Atlantic as well as in the North Pacific Ocean. We developed cultivation technologies that would be applicable to aquaculturalists there. And on our systems there, we were able to get 1,750 kilos per 100-meter long lines. And we had significant growth December through May, which happens to be the highest levels of nitrogen. So when we're looking at the growth of these seaweeds there, this really got the attention of the United States Environmental Protection Agency, and we received accolades in 2013 there, supporting our contention that when you grow seaweed, you're taking CO2 out of the water, increasing the pH, which is important. You're removing nitrogen with the growth, and this really gave it an economic incentive for government agencies to begin supporting cultivation of seaweeds on a larger scale. Well, when we look at the productivity, we've had experimental farms, and which have led to commercial farms in the southern range of the distribution of the sugar kelp in Long Island Sound, where the star is, and also all the way up to the Gulf of Maine areas for the state of Maine. And you can see the production numbers that we're able to get our farm sites there. Commercial growers get production numbers a little bit less, in part because they have the demands on their time, but this gives everybody a bracket how much you can produce. Well, when you're producing this amount of seaweed there, we also determine how much carbon is being extracted with that level of production, as well as how much nitrogen is being extracted for that level of production for growing the sugar kelp. And I've given some estimates there for the nitrogen removal. And when we're looking at nitrogen removal, there is an economic opportunity. And that economic opportunity right now has to do with bringing in seaweed cultivation into nitrogen trading programs in different parts of the United States. And people are interested in carbon removal, carbon sequestration. This gives you an understanding of how much carbon can come out with your kelp production. Well, when you're doing work in research, you also have to think about application. And some of the first two companies that I helped develop seaweed cultivation practices are now in the business. One is a company called Atlantic Sea Farm, formerly called Ocean Approved, up in the state of Maine. And the other one is Thimble Island Ocean Farms, and these are in the Long Island Sound area. And there are a number of edible, high quality products that have been developed from seaweed cultivation. Now, when we look at the value of the biomass there, this is really very important to develop processing capability, developing new markets there, and looking at trying to bring the sugar kelp to market there. You can see these estimates by going into smaller quantities in retail food establishments. Once you start scaling up, you have to lower your prices for the wholesale food industry as well. And if you have a lot of excess biomass, you can move that into composting and into fertilizers that have not only the economic benefit of supporting plant growth, but also enhancing the microbiome of the soil. So in addition to open water systems that we've been working on, I'd like to call your attention to an onshore system. This is with a green seaweed known as sea lettuce, ulva. Seakura is a producer of that. And we have farms that have been started in the northern Baja Peninsula. This is an area just south of the state of California. It has over 330 days of year of sunny weather, so energy is not limiting there. Temperatures are fairly consistent from the Pacific Ocean. And when we look at production in the raceways that we have in Baja, here we have production units. Each one is 640 square meters. Each of those production units produce 40 metric tons per year. We have in the Baja Peninsula, the company Blue Evolution and their subsidiary Promac, working with my colleagues at the Autonomous University of Baja California, has space for 12 production systems like this, but also we have to make sure there's markets available for that. And Blue Evolution has been looking and working very hard at expanding their markets for their ulva product there. And if you want to learn more about our system, a publication right now is online in the Journal of the World Aquaculture Society. Well, in addition to the programs that I've just talked about, the United States has developed a macro-algae research inspiring novel energy resources. This is biofuel applications, no land, no fresh water, no fertilizer. This is the program called Mariner. And Mariner has invested, this United States Department of Energy has invested over $50 million for 20 projects. Now, the US has a great opportunity. We have a very large exclusive economic zone, and Mariner estimated that we can produce in our nearshore environments in the exclusive economic zone over 500 million dry tons of macroalgae per year, and that could potentially yield 10% of the United States annual transportation energy demand. So Mariner has been a big push right now, and there's several Mariner projects that I'd like to just introduce you to. Mariner works on the premise, we'll develop new technologies. Obviously, we're not going to neglect our food industry, but as we're producing more biomass, it can go into the animal feed industry and ultimately go into biofuels. And a nice paper that some of my teams worked on is a paper by Capron et al. There, talking about some of the Mariner projects in production. Well, Mariner is supporting projects in the tropical ocean of the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. We're working with the eucumoid species that's got value for carrageenan, and we're working on expanding production. We've had our hiccups because our site was originally Puerto Rico. We expanded our sites to Florida, and after 2 years, I'm glad to report that we've just received all our permits to go into cultivation of the eucumoid, which is native to the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico of the United States and Mexico itself. Well, in the meantime, working with colleagues at the Nature Conservancy, we've been growing the eucumoid, Eucumatopsis there, and with the assistance of Danielle Robledo and the Yucatan, we've started the cultivation, and you can see here the cultivation of the eucumoid. We're also looking at the cultivation of seaweeds like the sugar kelp in the areas of Alaska. Alaska gives a tremendous amount of area. Estimates for area cultivation in Alaska is 16.5 million hectares. Within sites that are 50 kilometers to the ports of Alaska. We have 3.5 million hectares. And so the Mariner project has been looking at scaling up cultivation of the sugar kelp in the Gulf of Alaska. And we've developed rigs that are quite large, rigs that have over 18 kilometers of line, as you can see, recently planted lines that we have out in the Gulf of Alaska. Now, with all this, we're going to have a tremendous amount of biomass, and this biomass can go into different applications, foods, feeds, as well as looking at biofuel applications. Now, in addition to new technologies for scaling up cultivation, we also want to harvest looking at selective breeding technologies. Mariner is supporting that for the sugar kelp as well as the giant kelp, which occurs off the west coast of the United States. The Mariner program that's involved in the breeding is similar to the Genial program in Europe. So when we are looking at the cultivation of the sugar kelp there, we are looking at all the different phenotypic characteristics, looking at the genetic basis of these characteristics, and we have demonstration gardens in the Gulf of Maine, also in southern New England. We've done a lot of courses. We looked at heritability, and today I can report that we're having increasing yields each year that we are doing production of our sugar kelp, with the team publishing a major paper in Frontiers in Marine Science late last year. And this is really important because what we hope to do in the United States is improve our breeding technologies such that we can have increased improvement with new cultivars for the sugar kelp as well as for the giant kelp. And you can see here some of the anticipated benefits of where we're going each year with improvements. So today, when we look at the biomass of sugar kelp as well as other seaweeds, we also have to look at the seaweed biorefinery. And the seaweed biorefinery shows you that you have this biomass, you can apportion the biomass for different applications. And we're at the cusp right now of having enough biomass to move into biorefinery concepts that are being established in the United States, also in Western Europe. So hopefully today you can see we've given an overview where we are in North America, principally in the United States there, with our cultivation technologies. And, you know, over the next—
Professor, I have to stop you because you're out of time. I want to move to a question from the audience.
Okay.
Professor, a question from the attendees. What is the US policy on farming of seaweeds?
There is US policy on the farming of seaweeds, depends on the agencies. The federal agencies are supporting the farming of seaweeds. And that is the agencies that include the US Department of Agriculture, because seaweeds cultivation was in the Farm Bill to support. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is supporting seaweed cultivation. The Department of Energy is supporting cultivation. The Environmental Protection Agency is supporting it. So at the federal level, a lot of support, especially into the exclusive economic zone. However, every state, if you're dealing near shore, has their own separate restrictions. But the coastal states are interested in supporting the working waterfront, and they have been very generous in providing permits. May take a while, but they are generous about doing that.
Professor, I thank you very much. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. Could you stop your screen share and go on mute? Thank you, Professor. I'd just like to remind everybody that the professor and the others are live on the chat and the question and answer. To answer your questions now, feel free to post your questions over there, and their ongoing process, they would answer that. Just a quick reminder, we're having a technical difficulty, so you wouldn't be able to see the panelists, but you will be able to see their presentation. I'm sorry in advance. So now to our second guest of honor. She's a pioneer in the cosmetic industry. She leads a multinational cosmetic company into groundbreaking innovation in the field. Please welcome the president of Athena in South Korea, Mrs. Ike Park. Ike? 안녕하세요.
Hello.
Hi, Ike. Can you go on full screen?
Now it's okay?
Yes, thank you, Ike. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to meet you today. It is also an honor to meet you, global leader and seaweed pioneer. This is Eungyong Park. Just call me Ike, it's okay. I'm a president of Athena company. Today, I would like to speak about the macroalgae in the world of cosmetics. So here is a summary. Firstly, I will explain about me and Athena company, and I will show the cosmetic market, size, and trend, and marine brands. Then we could see the marine drives in cosmetic ingredients. And finally, I will suggest what we should do together as for the work. Yeah, I feel sometimes joy, anger, sadness, and pleasure. I'm very afraid. Today I wear the full makeup for you, but technically I couldn't see my face on the computer, so I'm very afraid. But I'm very emotional, so it is basic emotion which consists of my life. My family always with me and support me like a picture. Actually, my academic background is my marine biotechnology. Although I couldn't finish PhD yet since 2007, but I am a scientific and rational person. Also, I have supported the Korean Federation for Environmental Movement from 1999 to present, and I have supported World Vision from 2008. Yes, this is me. I'm an ordinary person and I want to make a better world. So that is why I established Athena 2005. We researched and developed innovative actives and valuable substances for safe and healthy beauty, using eco-friendly and sustainable process with plant and algae. Athena studied various species of seaweed. We separate and purify active noble compounds from seaweed in upstream research part. Also, Athena studied the optimal cultivation. We studied media composition, temperature limitation, light resource, and light intensity in lab scale, pilot scale, and industrial scale. To treat or handle and make some product from seaweed, we should achieve technologies such as extraction technology, decolorization, and deodorization, osmosis, purification technology, and separation technology. All technology is necessary. Athena is technology-oriented and ingredients development company. Now, it's about cosmetics. As you know very well, cosmetics are defined as an article intended to apply to the human body for cleansing, for beauty, and promoting attractiveness, altering the appearance without affecting body structure or function. I think as long as humanity exists, the desire to beauty will continue, and cosmetic industry will continue also. So, cosmetic industry cross over with other industries such as pharmaceutical or food industry, and also market is increasing. Cosmeceutical contains active ingredient for promoting specific function like anti-aging, whitening, UV protection, acne, atopy, like this. Third is a nutri-cosmetic. Nutri-cosmetic is ingestible beauty product. Yes, it is food, but this food affect to skin improvement. For example, the collagen uptake for anti-aging, hyaluronic acid uptake for skin moisturization, and as for example, astaxanthin uptake is for UV protection for skin. Cosmetic market grows by more than 10% every year. Also, natural cosmetic grows every year. Cosmetics are very high value added industry. That is why most huge group company have high-ended cosmetic brand and household brand. La Mer is most successful marine brand. At the beginning, Dr. Huber Max developed Miracle Broth, which contains giant kelp fermentation broth. Now, Estee Lauder Group's managing this brand. Arginist has their own ingredient from macro-algae. Biodiesel scientists found exceptional compounds, hyaluronic acid. Now they expanded, they're using spirulina pigment. Proya is the most leading skincare brand in China. They are using the marine technology. Also, they are using the nursing ingredient from the deep ocean. Lyricos is Korean brand. It's a prestige marine cosmetic. It's born in France in 1992. Actually, in Asia, seaweed is very popular and very easy to get as a food or biomass for product production. So here in Asia, there is a various kind of seaweed, algae, plankton, mud, deep sea water, volcano water, and fish collagen, mineral. We have a lot of resources from the ocean. So that's why we could develop various kind of formulation for cosmetic. One of the brand used a giant kelp for mask sheet instead of non-woven fabric. And also we could make non-woven fabric with 100% of alginate. Like a cosmetic ingredient also grows about more than 7% of every year, especially emollient film former and moisturizer market is a grower than just cosmetic, and each shared market almost 50% of cosmetic ingredient. Like cosmetic industry, the ingredient industry is dominated by very large companies. The most interesting thing is these large companies started to launch marine ingredient and they invest and merge marine manufacture. Ashland launched sea-stem kelp with jetaflexion technology, and Croda International owned Sedamer. They launched Sea Grape. Sepik owned Biotech Marine Company, and DSM long time ago they bought Martech for production DHA EPA, and Algatech, Israel company, they become a family of Sulavia Group 2019. Yes, macro-algae derived active ingredient its potential role in cosmetic formulation. The ocean is 70% our planet, and there are more than 300,000 species, and it's unexplored research field, and it could alternative natural resource, and increasing new scientific data. And there are special texture with phycocolloids, and it has a functionality. And most important thing is sustainability. Here is the representative marine polymer example from seaweed, marine animal, and marine microorganism. It's familiar with us. Here is also marine additives for function. The Estee Lauder, they developed a strong anti-inflammation ingredient from Caribbean coral, Gorgonia. It's kind of a first commercialized issue. And Expand Science unveiled the Algenia. It's a macro-algae for sensitive skin. It's from acid lake of Patagonia volcanoes. Severe condition makes some special ingredient. Lasonia developed fucoxanthin for anti-aging from brown algae. But its cosmetic market is an increasing market and very attractive. But suddenly corona pandemic is happen. Everything is changed. Change make chance. Customer preference toward bio-based and natural ingredient. And customer consumption pattern is changed back to basic. Also, lifestyle and buying power increasing in developing country, and every government regulation becomes strict. Also, cosmetic trend is changed. Clean beauty, outstanding indie beauty, also crossover beauty, and ingredient concern. Function is more important, cosmeceutical, and also sustainability is most important. The worldwide strong movement and biggest consideration is to think about our planet. And I would say seaweed industry could play a big role in solving this problem. Until now, just several big companies have studied in specific area for biodiesel, for some fatty acid, some extract. But I would say all part of seaweed can also replace all cosmetic ingredient. For commercialization, the constant and sustainable biomass production is key point. Now is the best timing, and also it's our time. We got technology, and we are all friends. We are together. So we are ready to produce and sell marine ingredient for healthy beauty and better world. Thank you very much.
Ike, that was amazing. You have a ton of questions. I will give only one, and then later on you can answer them on the chat. If you can just stop your screen sharing. Yeah, great. So the question is, what are the regulatory barriers for using seaweed ingredients in cosmetic sector in Korea?
Actually, in Korea, it's for food. We could use the all seaweed as a cosmetic.
Interesting, interesting. So you're saying not many barriers for seaweed because of traditionally being used in Korea.
Yes.
I understand. Ike, that was amazing. Thank you again. Please answer the questions because it's booming on the chat. And
Okay.
Thank you very much. Mute your microphone, please. Thank you, Ike. Third speaker for tonight is the most interesting professor out there. He is the head professor of the Faculty for Marine Science at the Rupin Academic Center in Israel. Internationally acclaimed. His topic for tonight is a close topic to my heart, a one-of-a-kind research about next generation seaweed-based sunscreen. Please welcome the multi-talented Professor Isaac Berzin. Erev Tov, Professor.
Erev Tov, thank you, Lior, and I would like to thank you, Lior and Avital, for an amazing organization of this panel, so good for you. Pleasure to be here. We're going to talk today about next generation of sunscreens, basically macro-algae based natural shield. So as you can imagine, this talk would have two parts. The first part will talk about the problem of current sunscreen products. So I promise you a semi-controversial talk on that front. And then we're going to outline the rationale for an alternative seaweed-based solution. Okay, ready? Okay, let's go. Okay, this is Chloe. Chloe is an 8-year-old. She's a lovely girl. And Chloe, as you can see, loves the sea. Chloe and her mother spend a lot of time together on the beach, enjoying all the charms that it can offer. They love to snorkel together. They love to explore the marine ecosystems, the seaweeds, the corals, the little fish. And this is a major part of Chloe and her mother's life. But Chloe's mother is a little bit concerned. She's concerned because she knows that the sunlight can cause skin cancer, okay? And she also knows that out of the total solar radiation, the wavelengths that are connected to skin cancer are mostly the UVA and UVB. UVC is mostly filtered by the atmosphere, thank God. So she knows that UVA and UVB are something to be concerned about. And Chloe's mother is not wrong. Basically, skin cancer is the most common cancer, I would say, in the world. 1 of every 5 Americans will develop skin cancer sometimes during his life. It affects everyone, regardless of your skin color. So no racism there. And if you were burnt as a child, your chances of getting skin cancer just increased significantly. So Chloe's mother was applying sunscreen products on her since she was a baby. And now Chloe, she's 8 years old, she's applying the sunscreen products on herself, especially on the nose, as you can see. Chloe knows that there are 2 categories of sunscreen products today. The first one is physical blockers, usually minerals. And what they do, they act like a mirror, just basically reflecting the UV light away from our body. And the second kinds are chemical blockers, mainly absorbing the UV and converting it to heat. Okay, these are the 2 main categories. But nevertheless, Chloe's mother is still worried because she wants to know, does the current offering protects Chloe? And she wants to know that it doesn't harm the marine ecosystem that they both enjoy so much. So the first question, does it protect Chloe? Research shows that sunscreens are protecting against all 3 of the major skin cancers. Nevertheless, I'm gonna say something controversial now. Ready? What I'm telling you is that the current usage of sunscreen enhances the number of skin cancer cases. I'll repeat this because it sounds unbelievable and not connected to what I show on the slide here. I'm going to repeat it. What I'm saying is that the current usage of sunscreen is enhancing, in fact, the number of skin cancer cases. Okay, so let me build this rationale. I'll start by this, okay? What is the highest degree of protection that you can expect from the sunscreen products? The highest degree of protection is with a certain kind of carcinoma, and the reduction is about 40% of the cases, which if you think about the half empty glass, this is 60% of unprotection. Okay, so you're mostly not protected than protected. Okay, let me continue building this narrative. Is there anyone here that is not using sunscreen? I will take this as a no. So all of you are using sunscreens. Okay, and you're all buying the sunscreen based on the SPF number. SPF stands for sun protection factor. So ladies and gentlemen, what is the sun protection factor? It's a factor of what exactly? Okay, I'll answer, okay? So the factor is comparing for how long does it take to your skin, your specific skin, to be burned, okay? If, for instance, your skin is burned after 10 minutes of exposure to the sunlight, the SPF 15 gives you a factor of 15 over that amount of time, which means now it's going to happen after 150 minutes in the sun, okay? So the SPF is specific to your skin. Now, have you tried your skin? Do you know how many minutes in the sun you need to spend to be sunburned? I don't think so, okay? More than that, this number, the SPF number, is based on applying a minimum amount of 2 milligrams per centimeter square on the skin every 2 hours. Does any of you measure the amount of milligrams per square centimeter or on the skin and measuring it every 2 hours? I don't think so as well, okay? And then if you compare, for instance, SPF 15 compared to 30, you might think that it's filtering the UV light twice, right? Because 30 is twice than 15. And then 50, oh my God, SPF 50, probably it's very strong. It's filtering the light over 3x, right? The answer is no. Actually, if you look at the SPF numbers, they're non-linear, okay? So if SPF 15 blocks 93% of the UVB, SPF 50 blocks 98. So there's no big difference between SPF 30 and 50 on the UV filtration front, okay? But what's so this factor is vague. I don't know how to understand it, how to interpret it. We probably do not apply it according to the number it really represents, but nevertheless, we feel protected. So we spend more hours in the sun because we feel protected, but it's a false protection. And I think that the bottom line is because we feel protected is we actually increase the cases of skin cancer, okay? It's a narrative, you can buy it or not. But now here comes the biggest problem of current sunscreen products, okay? The effect on human health. So if you look at the most commercially available sunscreen products, the active ingredients are easily absorbed through the skin, and you can find trace elements of them in the blood. In fact, in 96% of samples collected in the USA, the blood samples, they found active ingredients from sunscreens, and 85% of breast milk samples collected in Switzerland contain those ingredients. Some of those ingredients are hormone-like. They influence the endocrine system, and some of them form free radicals that really disrupt the skin, okay? So I can tell you as a chemical engineer, if you find chemicals in your blood and in your organs, usually it's not a great health promoter, okay? But now let's ask the second question, what about the marine ecosystem? So I would like to introduce you to oxybenzone. Oxybenzone is a very popular ingredient in many sunscreen products. And the only little problem with oxybenzone, it kills corals, okay? Here you can see coral before and after exposure to oxybenzone. And why is it happening? It's happening because coral actually is a symbiosis In these polyps live small microalgae that live there in symbiotic relationships with the polyp. And what this oxybenzone actually does is it's killing those little microalgae. As a result, this symbiotic relationship is broken, which is leading to coral bleaching. Okay, but more than corals, research found that active ingredients from current sunscreens influence fish, influence dolphins, mussels, etc. And I can tell you, if it influences all these marine creatures, it probably doesn't do great for your own health. Okay, so let's talk about something more encouraging now. I would like to present the heroes of the story. These are a family of molecules that are called microsporin-like amino acids. We're gonna call them MAA. And MAA are found in many autotrophic organisms, marine organisms. Some of them include microalgae and red algae. What's unique about those materials is they absorb UV very efficiently. There are additional reasons that these materials could be an excellent sunscreen ingredients. One of them is that they do not create any potentially toxic photochemicals when they react with light. They have a very strong absorption and they're pretty stable. The other thing is that you can enhance their production based on the cultivation conditions of the algae, and it has to do mostly with light conditions. Research showed that you can increase the productivity of MAAs in macroalgae by 5x if you control the growth conditions. Okay. The second reason they're ideal sunscreen is because they have a bunch of antioxidant activity. So actually they act not only as sunscreens, but as sun heal, okay? So they're preventing and at the same time healing the damage, the UV damage that our skin experiences. So it's a whole new world of dealing with a UV issue. As I mentioned before, a lot of red macroalgae are excellent producers of MAAs, but the bulk of the study was looking into the MAA content. Now, the MAA content is super high, especially when the macroalgae are exposed to UV light, but nevertheless, the growth rate is strongly decreases. So the overall productivity, it's still a question mark whether it's a gain or not. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. So what are we trying to do? So we're trying to optimize MAA productivity. Productivity means the content, the percentage of MAA in the macroalgae times the growth rate. That's productivity. So we're trying to optimize productivity by controlling light conditions mainly. And light means the light composition and the light and dark cycles. For instance, if overexposure of UV light is a problem, maybe a blinking UV light could bring you to a good place in which you increase the MAA content, but didn't hurt the overall growth rate. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is we would like to correlate UV protection to MAA composition. MAA is a large family of chemicals. So I want to make sure that we create an umbrella that really protects efficiently UV from UV damage. The third point is we would like to make sure that we don't have to take a mortgage if we want to buy an algae-based sunscreen. So the techno-economical analysis is important. We'd like to make it easy for our customers to make the right decision. Of course, we want to make sure that there's nothing toxic and there's no regulatory barrier preventing us from going to the market. Although it's food-grade algae, nevertheless, that's something we want to measure and feel comfortable. As you know, algae can absorb a lot of things, so we want to make sure that nothing is hiding there. So how are we doing this? We're collaborating with Seakura. as a potential production site or production company that can take this innovation and bring it into reality in a large-scale production. We're working with a sweet cosmetic company from Iceland, which could take the ingredient and create a pleasant experience as a cream that people would be happy to apply on the skin. We're working with Harvard Medical School to make sure that the numbers that we present in terms of the health benefits are real and measured by a respectable third party. And this is the secret weapon. This is the sweet students of the Rupin Academic Center that are cultivating the macro-algae. That's how the cultivation system looks like. It's a system that is identical to the one at Seakura, so the scale up would be pretty easy. We control light quantity, light quality, light and dark cycles, and a long list of other growth parameters. And we're looking at several algae. There are some usual suspects, but we're open-minded to that as well. So we hope that Chloe and her mother will not have a dilemma which product to use. It'd be very easy. You want to use the way you want to protect your body the way nature protects itself from UV radiation. And also the marine ecosystem would appreciate that. Okay, so thank you for your attention.
Professor, that was super, super interesting. We have tons of questions. Like I told you, this topic that's close to my heart, so I'm really excited. I'm going to ask you one question. Why white-skinned people are more vulnerable to UV radiation?
As I said, vulnerable, that's in terms of skin burn. Okay, so the pigmentation level is lower, right? The melanin or whatever. So we have it, but that's only the appearance of burn. Okay, it has nothing to do with the cancer. Okay, the percentage of cancer or the chance or the likelihood of you getting a skin cancer has nothing to do with the color of your skin. Okay, so that's why, you know, I think that the SPF, the sun protection factor, is only looking at protecting you from burning. But burning is not the issue. Burning is unpleasant, but that's not the issue. The issue is the radiation goes deep and creates DNA damage, and that's cancer. So it's very misleading in a way.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. Thank you again, Professor.
Sure.
Super interesting topic. Thank you. On to our next guest speaker. She is the VP of IEBA. I was lucky enough to meet her several times in person, and every time we speak, I learn something new. I would advise you to follow her as she knows her trends. From Berlin, Germany, please welcome Mrs. Alexandra Mosch. Guten Abend, Alexandra.
Guten Abend, Leo. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to this first webinar you are organizing at Seakura, Leo and the Seakura team. I'm actually delighted to share with you some of my thoughts on the topic you have given to me. So the European trends in the world of macroalgae. So just trying to go to the next. I have a little bit of a technical problem, Leo. I can't switch to the next slide. Do you have to do it? I can't hear you.
Interesting. We can see the first slide, Alexandra.
Okay, I only see my cover slide. So
okay,
you see...
No, just try to stop the share screen and do it again.
Okay.
It could happen. These things happen.
This is strange. Okay, so we try again. Perhaps I start in a different way. Perhaps this is better. So we just
try it again.
Try to start like this.
Just do a full screen option.
Yes. Okay.
Oh,
now
there you go.
Okay.
There you go.
So there we go. I'm really sorry. Okay. So as we heard already from the excellent speakers before, seaweed can be applied in many markets, so like food and feed, cosmetics, but also materials, pharmaceuticals, and biostimulants and fertilizer. So where is seaweed applied in the European Union today, and what are the main drivers for the future? So will there be changes? Perhaps just on the status, some very rough numbers. So from all the seaweed used in the EU, roughly 85% are applied in the food area, 85% of the value in food and cosmetics, And a majority is used as function providers. So we talk about carrageen, agar, and alginates, so about extracts here. 5% are wild harvested and 5% cultivated. This may be interesting looking at the system which Seakura provides. And I believe strongly this will change a lot in future. So let's have a closer look. European macroalgae market trends for food. We heard already several of the speakers before talking about the changes because sustainability is so important to all of us today. And we see a big transition of the food systems at global scale taking place. So actually we are coming a little bit from the left corner, so bottom, and going to the right top corner, meaning in former times, a lot of food came from land-bound sources and a lot was provided by animals. And this is changing now more and more to plants and also coming from the water. As we have heard as well already, 70% of our Earth is water, is the oceans, and also we have a lot of other areas like deserts and in the cities which we need to use for food production. So this upper corner will become more and more important. And actually the main drivers for consumers when they are looking for food today are also environmental concerns, so sustainability and health concerns. So it's more and more important also to consider the UN SDGs. For corporates and producers, obviously, main driver is also the price. So staying a little bit with food, so obviously carrageen, alginates, and agar will remain, but what is the new trends? So sustainability and health reasons, what is important then from the products? Natural and plant-based is seen as a basis and consumers are actively asking for it. Food safety regulations are also important, we heard before, so food needs to be safe. And organic is always like a quality criteria, and there are additional certifications upcoming, which we have seen. So halal is asked for more and more, and also certifications which show the ecological footprint. So in Europe, we have something, for example, which is called the Eternity Score, but there are similar other certifications also in Asia, I know, which show how much CO2 is produced or reduced, how much water is used, and so on. Then vegan and vegetarian is becoming a commodity. So a couple of years ago, it was still hard to find vegan or vegetarian food or restaurants. And today it's really almost normal. Functional food is more and more important too. Health benefits and health claims will be coming soon and will be providing additional benefits to sell better what you're producing. And not to forget, the absolute mega trend at the moment is non-animal protein. We will see in the years to come the disruption of the multi-trillion-dollar meat market. And it already started and it will be more and more. So we need to replace this and to find good plant-based alternatives. So contribution to the UN SDGs is a must right now. I think I mentioned this already. And the great thing for all of us here is seaweed checks all the boxes. So all the requirements which consumers see and which the industry has to cope with, we can provide when we are producing seaweed products. Talking about this mega trend, plant-based protein, just to show one little graph, which I quite like because it shows what's all coming together. And the trendsetters here are the millennials, the Generation Z, the vegans, vegetarians, and flexitarians, and they make up most of our market from today in the food area. Again, seaweed checks all the boxes, which is good, but we should always remember taste and convenience are key for these trendsetter groups as well. And price has to be or become competitive, which is still sometimes a challenge for the seaweed-based products. So closing on the food market, the challenge is the price. This is not competitive for protein yet and for several seaweed-based CPGs, but this will change in future with volumes which are going to be upscaled with seaweed biorefinery concepts, which will contribute, and also when the sustainability will be priced, because this is another aspect we should not forget. Carbon credits will be coming, and nitrogen and fish credits are already under discussion. Taste of some seaweeds, perhaps as a little side remark from Europe, does not always meet the European consumer expectations or habits. So for this reason, for the CPGs, sometimes formulations have to be created which are more in line with what we are used to here. This is just a picture showing some seaweed species. I don't know whether all the audience is coming from our industry, just to show their wonderful names. They look wonderful and they have fantastic ingredients. And this is just a little bit illustrating. Some are sold in this area of food, some in feed, and of course also in other areas. It's just as giving some example. And for the biomass, and also giving some examples on the CPG side. So we have nice product examples also in alternative protein. I selected here some, but also others like in pasta or some, for breads just to eat with it. Also a falafel from Israel actually. So very different products already on the market. And also, as you see in the top part, there are companies already working on the biorefinery and are already they're not finished yet, but will be providing soon protein extracts from red seaweed, which provide an additional function also to meat-like products. This is what I quite liked as of 1st of January this year. So this was the title of the Times in UK. So it's obviously also the right time now to work in the seaweed area and provide food based on seaweed. There's another second market, which will be a big market for the future for our seaweed, and this is biomaterials. Everybody is talking and concerned about plastics pollution, the pollution of the oceans, and also about microplastics. And this means the demand in this market for new materials, natural-based materials, is high. The pressure is high, and what is searched for is recyclability, sustainability, and renewable resource. This will be key for the future. And there are several companies working on solutions based on seaweed here. They are at the moment already in upscaling processes. And I believe we will soon see more solutions on the market coming. Which is also very interesting is that for this area, the resin from seaweed, so the extracts or the dried seaweeds sometimes are mixed with other natural materials, which brings totally new materials to different application industries in this area with new characteristics. This is, again, innovation and very exciting to see. Biorefinery concepts here are also very promising for increasing the margins and providing very different products. Seaweed, again, will be disruptive, very disruptive here and deliver many new solutions. This is to show you some of the products which are already there under development and some on the market. Just to show you, it can be in the normal packaging area, providing for properties that the food will have a longer shelf life, even giving sometimes a second life to food because it's drying and not moldy. Then also for like the automotive industry, with heat resistance and others. So very interesting developments ongoing. Another big market we heard already about, so I will not comment that much about it. You had a fantastic speaker before me, is cosmetics. We know high quality is important there and sustainability as well. Function is key anyway. There is some demand there. seaweed products are not that much on the market yet, or some extracts as we know. And I believe there will be more to come. And it's kind of easier also to continue to develop because here we have a very attractive niche with a little bit higher prices. And last but not least, very quickly on fertilizer. So we have not seen that much here, but there's a high pressure on AgTech at the moment. A lot of developments ongoing. Function and problem solvers again are what is important here. and the replacement for chemical solutions is searched for. We are here in an area where high volumes count and low price is required. This is why there will be some solutions also coming from seaweed, I believe, but probably it will take some time and probably more with the biorefinery concepts together. So as a summary, I believe there will be a boom in seaweed-based food products coming now, particularly with the sustainability and health aspects. Also in the CPGs area with the health function, algae biomass will become definitely a commodity product and ingredient for bioplastics, and cosmetics will remain an attractive niche. More opportunities with fertilizers as well, with biorefinery to come. Yeah, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk here, and I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you. That was fascinating. It's always fascinating listening to you. Can you stop your screen share, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sure.
That's okay. That's okay. We have a question here. We have tons of questions. You can check the chat and Q&A. One question is Alexandra, open water harvest or wild harvest are still the main suppliers for the European market. Do you think the heavy metal breakdown in seaweeds is a game changer?
Yes, I think it's very important, and this is also a main concern, particularly I think we are talking about the food applications here, right? Yes, this is absolutely important.
I see. All right. Thank you, Alexandra. I hope you will stay with us and answer all these questions on the chat and Q&A. All of you guys can, on the attendees, submit your questions. The speakers are here for that. I'm going to move forward.
Theo and Jaime and Davital, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alexandra. Fifth speaker for tonight is Mr. Theo Verleon, CEO of Goa Ventures and a long-time top director at DSM, and a multi-talented professional in the field of bioprocessing of macroalgae. Theo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lior, and the Seakura team for inviting me and these nice presentations.
Thank you. You can start the share.
I will share now, and hopefully you can see it. Do you see it?
It just said you need to press the full screen.
Stop share and try again.
It's a good idea.
Which we did in the rehearsal, and then it worked. Do we have it?
Perfect, perfect. Go ahead, Theo.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Glad to be here and share the view that I have in making the macroalgae bioprocessing profitable. It was very good to be just after the speech of Mrs. Alexandra Morsch, because she referred to bioprocessing regularly. And we can also say that we have mastered some of the pieces of the game, but there's still a long way to go. But I would like to share with you what we have mastered until now. In bioprocessing, for me, it's very important to understand what you want to produce. There's a lot to produce out of seaweeds, but you need the right partners specifying for you the demand of the product they want to apply. And if you know what they want and you can select your biomass or your seaweed species in this case, then you get into your cockpit of control parameters and you try to operate a bioprocessing facility which converts biomass to the product that the off-taker would like to get. So we've looked in literature and we've looked at what all is done in science related to seaweed processing. And what we learned is that there is a lot of research going on, but 90+% of the projects start with drying seaweed, storing it in a cupboard, and then taking it into a laboratory. And very often it's one species of seaweed. Real world, of course, will never be able to dry huge quantities of seaweed, so that is a hurdle. Then the research focuses many times on one extractant, which often goes together with relatively low yields, but unique specificities of those extracts. There's very often no integrated flow, and there is very limited link to the higher demands in logistics, because huge volumes of seaweed to the laboratory is impossible, so we need to do something about that. The R&D was many times leading in the science, not the entrepreneurship. There's a poor refinery skills in most of these sciences. They take the dried seaweed out of a cupboard, and that's where the process starts. There's a limited customer involvement. Like I said, you need to know what you need to produce before you get anywhere. There's a weak vision on sizing, and there's a big focus on floating and wild seaweed harvested, not really on the production. All these learnings were relevant, but our approach has been different. We have shifted to using fresh seaweed to control logistics, to control energy input cost for drying or freezing, and very important, to control the food grade status and the sustainability. The design of the best-in-breed consortium, so what does the customer want to buy and what specifications do they want? And then there is a very clear statement that the technology for bioprocessing is not the issue. The required hardware that you need for seaweed bioprocessing all exists. Seaweed has the benefit that it does not have these hardy, cellulose-rich, woody components. So you can use a lot of mild technologies to do bioprocessing. The most interesting one, and Alexandra Morsch also referred to that, you need to cascade the extraction of products. And why do you need to do that? You need to get as much as possible value out of each and every kilo of seaweed until the day that seaweed get as cheap as other commodities like sugar or corn. We need the cascaded bioprocessing. So the process we have today is we harvest seaweed, we wash and slice, preferably offshore, and we start the processing offshore. Then we transport the material, the size reduced and washed material to the harbor. And back on land, we separate the water, which now contains the protein, from the remaining solids. The protein is one of the key valuable products that we retrieve today from the seaweeds. And we do that by removing the water as well as the minerals from what we now call the functional proteins. We've really proven some functionalities that nobody has ever seen yet from the dried seaweed or frozen seaweed taken out of the cupboard. The next is, of course, you have the solids left. You can still extract alginates, carrageenans, or others, but you also have the option to go for total hydrolysis and make a sugar broth and go into a fermentation process, for example, which we've done for biogas, bioethanol, and we're actually working on some of that into bioplastics. So in this technology, you have functional proteins, which is a high value product. You have the option to extract alginate or carrageenan, which is today a commodity bulk market. And you have the option to go into biopolymers or renewable energy. Why do we do these steps? First of all, we reduce the logistic volume by slicing offshore and processing offshore. We leave the fauna in the habitat where the material is harvested. Also, important topic for NGOs to do not destroy the biodiversity there. We use the logistic time to harvest and bring it to the port as part of the processing time. We avoid drying and freezing energy input, which is a big issue for sustainability concerns. And most important for me is that we preserve the high food grade quality. We don't have logistic time which digests or destroys the food grade perspective. We also remove minerals and contaminants in the process water. We have really achieved, the previous question was the heavy metal discussion. We've really removed some of the heavily contaminant minerals out of the biomass and out of the protein into the wastewater. And that way we also can claim a cleanup of the environment. We use existing hardware, as said before, and we have simplified many operations by using ambient temperature, ambient saline conditions, and ambient acidity conditions. And we keep for the whole process the flexibility of input and output. We've done it on many seaweed types, and we are talking to off-takers on what they want out of that seaweed. So cascaded value extraction for us is crucial. We do that mainly today with protein and energy transition in mind, in perspective of the Paris agreements. We be flexible in traction because we want to start small and we ultimately want to become big in volume and operations. We work with fresh material, which we convert in multiple fractions. The right seaweed mix is essential to get year-round. As Professor Jaric mentioned, they have in North America the options to go for Gracilaria and kelps and have a year-round coverage. That typically is important for a biorefining process. You cannot have a biorefinery that works for 3 or 4 months a year. With the proteins we extracted, we've been into the baking market, in the sauces and dressing market with the seaweed protein, in the dairy replacements, dairy alternatives, and all of them showed good performance. The balance between fresh products and low offshore costs is a hurdle that we need to take care of and requires a lot of optimization. How fresh is fresh seaweed is a key question. We like to operate near shore, but if we want to have a good environmental impact. For us, it's crucial, since we are a bioprocessor, we are not a seaweed farmer, we are selecting the right farmers. Technology to bioprocess is for us no longer an issue. We have an experience, and we need farmers who have an experience in vision and upscaling. We need to have a tangible roadmap of cutting farming costs drastically in Europe today from 700 euro per wet weight ton. We hope to get below 50 euro per wet weight ton. Mechanization and lab breeding, already mentioned by previous speakers, are important for cost cuttings. And as mentioned, multiple year-round species farming is still in its infancy, but crucial for the future. The challenge is to match small entrepreneurial seaweed farmers today with the industrial big entity demands. A different picture of why we do it. If you want to eat beef, you have a big impact on land, freshwater, and greenhouse gas emissions. If we go for seaweed bioprocessing as an alternative for beef protein, then we have a negative impact on all of this. Top priority for us in upscaling is only the volumes help to impact the sustainability development goals. Only with volumes of seaweed and perspective of big players, the big players will step in, and it will help us all out of the valley of death. Only with firm supportive policy targets from governments will take us beyond just being likable. And we cannot expect the small entrepreneurial businesses of farmers today to drive these big number changes. Just to give you an example of big numbers, we have created a business case on demand of some of the Dutch authorities, and one bioprocessing plant near shore in the Netherlands will require 20 to 30 square kilometers to produce an annual 500,000 tons of wet seaweed per year. And such a volume of seaweed will deliver about 20 million cubic meters and about 6,000 tons of functional proteins. Just to give you a picture, if you want to be integrated into a multinational food business, you need protein volumes in that range. And these are the indicative numbers of investments and revenues. Next for us is create consortia of people who have a demand of seaweed products, Today, we are focusing on protein and renewable energy, the number one in this line. We have discussions going on with consortia to have protein, alginates, a medical compound, and biogas. And we go on in our developments. And what we want to do is to create these consortia who have a need for seaweed constituents. Hopefully, also mentioned by earlier speakers, CO2 taxation will help us to get these developments triggered. I also would like to draw your attention to a Dutch seaweed market overview, which is sponsored by 3 government authorities, which will happen next March 11. You need to get registered through this email address. You can ask me. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to some of your questions.
Theo, thank you so much. That was great. We have so many questions. You need to stay put. But one question is with regards, what water do you wash the biomass offshore? Salt water or fresh water?
Oh, that's a very good question. Obviously, we wash it with salt water. And the reason why we do that is we want to keep the seaweeds healthy and alive in order not to destroy the functionalities of the protein. So we want to wash it with their habitat water conditions.
Oh, great. Theo, thank you for that. I remind everybody that Theo and the others are live on the chat now to answer your questions. Theo, you better answer because it's booming. And thank you, Theo. Next is a super important topic. Did you know that 1 out of 8 women will suffer from thyroid gland disorder in her lifetime? 20 million Americans suffer from some sort of disorder in the thyroid gland, and it's estimated that 60% aren't even aware of their condition. Dr. Yaniv Ovadia, a world-renowned researcher from the Barzilai University Medical Center in Israel, is researching iodine deficiency for decades now. And the solution? You name it, macroalgae. Dr. Yaniv, Erev Tov, take it from here.
Erev Tov. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. It's Yaniv. I know the schedule has been stretched a bit, so I will try to make it precise, short, and efficient. So I'm a researcher, as mentioned, in the Barzilai University Medical Center. I'm also a lecturer at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And I'm also one of the co-founders of YodIntech. Actually, it's a pre-pregnancy iodine intake detector. It's all digital, rapid. That's why I'm so interested and so excited to speak with you. I will start with a question. What is the world's most prevalent yet precise and important brain damage cause? That's right, it's iodine deficiency. Actually, the goal of the WHO is to eliminate it. It would be an achievement that will be hailed as a major public health triumph that ranks with getting rid of things like smallpox and polio. The problem with one of the problems or one of the mechanisms with iodine and neurodevelopment is that, in particular during pregnancy, the needs of iodine are getting enlarged, increased because of the creation and neurodevelopment of the fetal brain. It is assumed that actually when there is iodine deficiency in the mother during the pregnancy, there are less branching of nerves and neurons inside the brain, which may lead to decreased IQ results among the offsprings, even when or after they are getting to the age of 6 to 9 years old. Iodine is a natural chemical element, actually, just like oxygen, hydrogen, or iron, which is naturally found in certain foods products and also available as dietary supplements. Iodine is nutritious and critical proper health in all stages of life. It is critical in proper function of the thyroid gland, especially before, during pregnancies, breastfeeding, and for proper brain development of the fetus and newborn. As you see in the pictures, actually, iodine is entering our food, our mouth and our GI tract through the mouth. And when it's getting to the bloodstream, it is getting absorbed by the thyroid gland. After that, in turn, the thyroid is producing T3 and T4, which is two hormones that actually are dependent in iodine. As you see in the picture, nearly 2/3 of their weight is from iodine. That's why it is so important to many, many parts, functions in our body. What is interesting that recently it was found that actually proper intake of iodine can protect ourselves from COVID and other viruses. It is because of the nature of iodine to protect and to enhance the innate immune system. Iodine deficiency has multiple adverse effects on growth and development in animals and in humans as well. These collectively term the iodine deficiency disorders and are one of the most important and common human diseases. They result from inadequate thyroid hormone production due to lack of sufficient iodine intake. As you see in the map, all the countries with purple color are iodine deficient. It is really shocking that in many places in the world, even in Western countries, such as in Scandinavia, as you see here, there is iodine deficiency in the public. I was one of the researchers that actually implemented and initiated the national survey in Israel. Israel is a very developed country with the health system, which is really sophisticated. Even though there is shockingly iodine deficiency in Israel, although there is no lack of food or other stuff. It is interesting to mention that maybe the increased reliance on desalinated water in Israel is one of the causes. For people who don't know, the system of desalination in Israel is based on seawater reverse osmosis. In this technique, in this method, more than 98% of the minerals are removed from the water, and the supply is lack with iodine as well. Another two reasons are the reduction of salt use, even in developed region. I will later explain maybe why. And also, we've also managed to show that in many Western countries, there is a decrease in milk consumption or milk products or dairy product production. What we've noticed that actually milk can contain iodine. One of the reasons is because of iodophores, which are actually sanitizers to prevent bacteria in the milk. There are many methods or diverse methods to eliminate iodine deficiency, not actually succeeding, frankly. One of the most known method is iodized salt. Another one is iodized oil, bread, and vegetables, as you see on the right side. What is interesting about the vegetable is that there is a method to spray iodine on vegetables in order to enrich them with iodine. So far, it is proven that it is an expensive method. There is a caution or limitation regarding the salt consumption. Actually, many health authorities are recommending their public to avoid salt consumption due to sodium intake. In many places, one of the most important health concerns is hypertension or cardiovascular disease. Many of them are linked with high sodium intake. Which leads me to one of the advantages of algae or seaweeds. Actually, what we see here is ulva on the right or gracilaria on the left. They are naturally containing iodine sources, which is really, really important. I would like to summarize briefly what I've said so far and what I want you to remember from our conversation here. First of all, iodine is an important element for human body. It is not so popular, but it is still crucial for our health system. The second thing is that iodine deficiency is indeed global public health concern. Some would call that pandemic. The third thing is that some environmental or dietary habits changes throughout life or throughout the history of humankind are maybe linked with the iodine intake decline. And the fourth thing is that current methods to eliminate deficiencies, especially regarding to iodine, are limited. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'm ready for questions.
Thank you, Doctor. That was insightful, I have to say. We have many questions, so you have to stay put. Can you stop your screen share, please? Yes. And the first question is, in your opinion, what is the major benefit of taking natural iodine from seaweeds versus synthetic iodine?
Okay, thank you for the question. As far as I understand, we are talking about the advantage of consuming iodine from natural sources. So in many places, many authorities are concerned with the compound that the iodine is coming with, the molecule that it's coming with. Some of them are getting evacuated from our body quite rapidly.
All right, thank you, Doctor. Thank you for that. Stay put and answer the questions on the chat. Thank you. Perfect, thank you. Next up, a young startup in the Netherlands. They believe land-based seaweed is the future of sustainability. Now, recently they became Seakura's partner in the Netherlands. Come listen to their journey towards a more sustainable ecosystem. Please welcome Mr. Alwin B. Kool from Seaweed Tech. Alwin, guten Abend.
Guten Abend, Lior. It's Dutch, hè? Goedenavond. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Indeed, from the Netherlands, this is Alwin from the company Seaweed Tech. It's very much similar to what Seakura has been doing. So we're happy and very proud to be part of this, this summit as a little spin-off here in the Netherlands. I cannot change my, can you hear me? Because oh yeah, there we go. So Seaweed Tech, what we do, what we actually will be doing is with our land-based cultivation technology, we will produce a reliable source of high quality seaweeds. Of course, everybody knows in this audience that due to its nutritious value and bioactive compounds, seaweed's ingredients are attractive, specifically for niche markets in the food additives, healthcare, and pharmaceutical industries. As to date, the current status, we have last year launched a demo cultivation system here in the Port of Amsterdam, which we call our phase 1. Later on, I'll explain you a bit more about the different phases that we foresee for the future. Our next phase is basically what we are looking at right now, is the establishment of a pilot cultivation system. This will be an increase of this very little setup here in Amsterdam to a little bit larger setup of 500 cubic meter setup in the province of Zeeland, where we will show not only ourselves, of course, but mainly potential investors and the markets that we would like to supply with, that at a commercially scale, we can actually produce over. And then finally, in 2.5 years time from now, we will set up with new potential investors, a plant scale cultivation system, whereby we will be producing out of a hectare farm ulva for different sectors that we've heard, luckily heard earlier during this presentation on, although we all started with, of course, an introduction of Professor Yaris saying the US and Europe is not really on the market of seaweed. I think we will be part of that solution. What we also at Seaweed Tech realized is that seaweed components, although it's really known for bioactive positive effects, and it's used for several good usages. In reality, this growth is not seen in the market as high as we would have expected. We think as part of the main reason for the lack of growth, although we heard other reasons as well earlier today, but part of the main reasons in our view is that due to market requirements, high investment cost, product development, and potential negative impact. These markets are not currently growing as quickly as we would like to see them. Specifically, the market requirements that's in the industries that we look at, being the health and care industries, the pharmaceutical and the food additives, they really want the highest levels of quality assurance, standardized, consistent quality, and year-round availability and traceability. Also, there's many and high CapEx and OpEx investment needed for these kind of production facilities. Since that's not there yet, there is a lack in product development at the same time. And especially in Europe, we do not see on product development a lot going on. How we see the future and what we really hope will happen is that land-based cultivation will be part of a solution. Land-based production can provide industries with a reliable source of high-quality seaweeds. It allows for the highest levels of efficiency, traceability, certification, and security. It is fully controlled and costs are more predictable. And seaweeds can be produced year-round. And moreover, it's an environmental acceptable method of production since it does not intervene at all with vulnerable ecosystems, nor it will absorb valuable coastline areas. So our proposition is that we will capitalize on this opportunity. We would like to cultivate seaweeds from our land-based systems and provide industries year-round with our production. What we have so far, since we are cooperating with Seakura, we already have produced from the Israeli farms. So here in Amsterdam, we already are happy and able to provide markets with either freshly frozen ulva, flakes, or powders. Earlier, I was talking about the roadmap. The roadmap where we are now is that phase one is the demo installation where I'm actually standing in now. And we are actually working for getting and achieving the pilot installation in place in the province of Zeeland. And then after that, we will work hard towards the establishment of the large 1 hectare production facility. And that will be the moment that we will become profitable and financeable. The picture in the back, unfortunately, the video mode is not working today. But what you see here is the setup in Amsterdam. It's a miniature rollout of our future operations, where you see that there's different ways and different phases of the ulva growth taking place to fully produce the plant. The phase two, hopefully in a few months from now, we will roll out this pilot. And we will do that in the province of Zeeland. You see the picture there, which is at the coastline of the East Scheldt. And there we will land our next phase. We call it the pilot phase. And then ultimately, as said earlier, we will roll out the plant scale production, which will be basically a 1 hectare facility where we use a conservative forecast based on a 10-month production. And we now have in our financial model of only 100 grams per cubic meter per day. But we know from literature, but also from the proof here in the demo, that we can easily make that 150 grams per cubic meters per day, or even 200. Well, if we use this capacity, so only the 100 grams per cubic meters per day, we are forecasting now that CeweTech becomes self-financing in 2024. The focus for now, we have the demo here and we are working on setting up the pilot. Having said that, we have to do 2 things at the same time, whereby my partner, Michel Trommelen, is really focusing on cultivation and production. He is really working on getting ulva going, making sure that the cultivation and the controlled life cycle is done properly so we can optimize growth. and thereby create as much biomass as possible. And at the same time, since we are not producing for just because we like to produce, we want to develop markets and its products. So we are working hard, and fortunately, we can already have raw material from Seakura's operations in Israel. So we're already started to prepare markets here in the Netherlands to develop products. So this is the team and partners. It's myself and Michel that have founded the operations here, and we are building up on a team at the moment, which you will see here. Sophie is working on product and sales, and Robin, Alexander, and Frans all have their different expertise they bring here to the table. And maybe even more important are our partners. Partners like Seakura and Priva, they are really helping us setting up the installations here and the operations here. But on top of that, there is a wide, especially in the Netherlands, market of players that are very cooperative in doing this together, because we cannot do that by just doing your own ambition and your vision and your mission, but you have to do it together. So companies like Sea Flavors, Hortimare, Dutch Seaweed Group, and Stichting Zeeschalp are really helping us out to do that together. So to jointly strengthen the market, because the market is in essence, it's huge. It's still underdeveloped, but it's huge. And then we are, last but not least, also affiliated with a few of the research and universities here in the Netherlands that on a speaking base and talking base are really helping and advising us where needed. So Lior, typically I would have liked showing you now the, what I can do is briefly try to link it to the Seakura LinkedIn page where you can see the demo, if you allow me. Give me 1 second to try that.
All right, see if you can do that.
Yeah. Do you see it now?
Yeah, it's loading. It's loading. Yes.
Okay. And can you still hear me?
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay. All right. So this is the setup in Amsterdam, where this tank, what you see now, is just a small one. This will ultimately become a 15-meter or even 50-meter long tank. And these are the smaller ones. And Priva is the company separate from Seakura, the two companies helping us with all the climate control, water control, etc., measuring everything here in the recirculation system for our system. And the pictures behind is actually the future that we would like to work towards to. So that's it. Sorry, I couldn't do it live, Lior, but this is as good as it gets.
You did it perfectly, and it went amazing. You have an amazing setup over there.
Okay. Well, also thanks to you.
We have we have a couple of questions for you, Alwyn. Can you switch off your share screen, please? One of them is asking if you're already selling, and the other one is trying to ask, are you using artificial light underwater LEDs and above?
Yes, we are selling our products now. As I mentioned a few times, we have the raw material from Seakura. We have freshly frozen, we have powders and flakes of ulva. So we're happy, and on our website you can see what we have and you can order it. So that's for sure. On the topic of artificial light, we use it above, we don't use it in the water. And the other thing we have not used yet, but we will definitely use for a pilot, is to include CO2 in the water as well, because growth will really accelerate then as well.
Amazing, amazing, Alwyn. Thank you very, very much. Stay put for so many questions on the chat and on the Q&A, and we're moving forward. Now, we've reached the last presentation for tonight, but before we start, I would like to mention that we are extremely proud that today we are launching our new .com website. You are all welcome to visit seakura.com. Drop us a message. Now I invite you to get to know Seakura from a close and personal point of view. Seakura's CEO, Chaim Oz, will take you towards our seaweed revolution. Chaim, Erev Tov. One second, Chaim, we cannot hear you.
Now, you hear me?
Yes, perfect, perfect.
Thank you very much, Leo. First and foremost, I would like to thank all the participants and all the worldwide interest that we have in our first summit. With your permission, I will tell you a little bit about Seakura and where we want to go with our technology. So I will start from the beginning. Our story is basically started back then in 2007 by Mr. Yossi Karta, which was the entrepreneur that visionized the need of establishment of macro-algae land-based operation. Actually, it's drove out of pure love of the ocean. And the main purpose of that vision was to actually grow macro-algae land-based pool in clean environment and in compliance with strict international quality and safety standards. Behind our brand lie 13 years of research and development that brought us up to perfection in how to grow seaweeds on land in a way that give us all what we in a minute will emphasize. So as I mentioned, the drive came out of pure love for the ocean. So when we love someone, we want to protect him. So protection of the ocean, to create a sustainable ecosystem, to create a healthy food chain, and to contribute to climate change and find another solution or adding solution for that challenge. The situation and is how seaweeds are traditionally grown today. Most of the seaweeds are actually been grown in the open oceans and been harvested from the ocean. The problem, unfortunately, is that our oceans are polluted. We are depending on seasons, so we don't have a constant supply. Out of natural condition, we don't have a consistency quality of crop, and the solution that Seakura found is actually a unique land-based tech, which is patent technology, in order to overcome those problems. So basically, the reason that most of the world or most of the industry that dealing with the algae is focused on micro, and we decided to go on macro from different aspects, and one of them is that seaweed is the fastest growing biomass on our planet. By using photosynthesis as the most effective way to capture actually CO2. And just to give you all a proportion, each ton of wet seaweed it absorbed 120 kg of CO2. And for another example, around 2 kg of nitrogen and other elements. So on top of everything, our seaweed application often replace fossil fuel-based products like synthetic fertilization, pesticides, and can result in reduction in methane emission. And that is how we are contributing our effort to the environment. So basically, the outcome is a unique technology that allow us to produce a premium quality seaweed with optimal nutrition value, compliant with strength regulations, and unlimited water source that we have in the ocean. We actually not affecting freshwater use that we all know that is not, the situation worldwide is not becoming better in that sense. We created a fast-growing cycles that allow us to actually grow during the year and all year round in a way that we have a consistency of raw material as the seaweed. We created the seaweed that allow us to keep in condition of long shelf life, dry or frozen. We can keep regulatory paper trail by the highest standard that are being regulated around the world. And actually, seaweed became as a fresh product like any other fresh vegetable, that from harvesting to immediate packing and to the market. The technology that that we developed is a patent, and the result of the 13 years of know-how and research actually brought us to all the points that I just mentioned. Our seaweed is grown in organic condition and complies with international standards for heavy metals, pesticides, and biological pollutions. So we are actually able to use our seaweed in many different applications based on those standards. We are focused in growing two kinds of algae, seaweeds. The first is glaciolaria and the second one is ulva. We selected those two kinds for many reasons. The two most important are, first of all, the values of the minerals that they contain. And the second, that those two are one of the most common around the world, what allow us to be able to grow them in Israel as well as in Latin America or in Asia, etc., and allow us the flexibility to expand and to be able to build the different farms and different locations based on the needs. The outcome product that we have on farm gate is actually divided into three, which is the fresh or fresh frozen, flax, and powder. And out of each one of those form of products, we can make or build a line of products as the business model drive us. Markets and business potential. So from that same seaweed, we can go into agriculture fertilizers, animal food, biological filters, cosmetic supplements, and of course, extractions. Over the extractions, we are focusing today in agar and agarose protein. And for the long run, we will start to extract also different minerals, dietary fibers, pigments, and all kind of antioxidants that we have in the seaweed. In that point, I will elaborate a little bit about our business approach. So we are dividing our products into two business models. One is a B2B. In the B2B, we are aiming for extraction of protein and agarose, as I mentioned, for firsthand, for the different industries of food industry, pharmaceutical industry, etc. And we have the B2C line of product that over that we are focusing on a series of dietary supplements, a culinary line of products, and cosmetics. The common ground for all those are based on our own growing seaweeds and 100% natural. Seakura now in a point that we are looking to expand, and we're actually in a position to look for partners around the world for two kinds of partners. The first is our partners that have interest to distributor our line of products, the B2C, what we call. If it's the supplements, cosmetics, or culinary, if their interest in each country, there is advantages to one line of products or the other, we are open for that. So that is the first group of partnership that we are looking. And the second one is actually to expand our capabilities of growing seaweed. We are looking for building new farms with expanding potential that will allow us to have massive growth by production, to be able to sell out mostly the B2B category line of product. That for that we need a massive amount of raw material as algae. So if one of you have the relation or the need or the desire to partner with us, we are welcome you to approach us and see up to what point we can take it forward. That's it about Seakura. And I would like again to thank each of one of you over the participation. And I hope that you find the summit educational and interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chaim. Thank you so much. If you can stop your share and go on mute, that would be great. This concludes our summit for tonight. We wish to thank everyone who took part in this event. On top of that, we will send all of you a participation certificate as a token of appreciation for taking part in this summit. Now, we will leave the chat open for your questions for about 15 minutes, so you can post all your questions. The speakers are live. Feel free to submit any questions also to our email at info@seakura.com. And don't forget to surf our seakura.com new website. Thank you all again. Please follow us on LinkedIn and keep the revolution as the evolution. See you next summit. Good night.